Welcome back to Where Truth is Valued. Whoop, 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 whoop. I am so excited to be on video. I say this that am I trying to pretend? Am I trying to believe this to myself that I'm actually excited? No, I am. We are back. This is the podcast where we weigh up the truths that we are told about our world. So there's so many things that we are told to be true, and we're here to weigh it up, to get all the information we can, and then to make our own decisions. We're all about critical thinking over here at Where Truth is Valued. Today's episode is all about Labour's plan to introduce that 20% VAT on private schools. So we're going to dig into this. We're going to get into what is actually going on, why private schools haven't been paying VAT in the first place, and what the implications could be. So Labour is planning to introduce a 20% VAT on private schools. This is looking like it will raise approximately £1.6 billion annually, and this will go to hiring 6,500 state school teachers and also support other educational improvements. I've been waiting for this to see if it was ready. Oh, she snapped. She snapped on this. She is me. By the way, if you see me looking down, it's because I'm reading. So by imposing this VAT on private schools, Labour is trying to reduce the financial advantages that private schools have been having because they've been exempt from paying VAT. Just for context, in the UK, VAT, which means value added tax, is paid by consumers when they are purchasing goods or services. This is a step that they feel will reduce the social economic segregation in education, giving state schools an opportunity to offer more improved educational opportunities. So when I heard this, the first thing I thought was, why are private schools not paying VAT at the moment? Well, historically, private schools have been exempt from paying VAT because they are classified as a charity. So, what does this charitable status mean? This charitable status has allowed them to benefit from tax reliefs, including reduced business rates, VAT, and eligibility for tax-deductible donations. Private schools in the UK have not always been classified as charities, but many have held a charitable status for a significant period. And the status of private schools is deeply rooted in historical developments in education and charitable law. Many private schools in the UK were founded centuries ago by religious organisations or philanthropists. And this was to provide education to specific groups. And these groups were often the poor or orphans. These institutions were seen as charitable endeavours because they provided educational opportunities where there were few or none. Over time, as these schools grew and began serving wealthier families, their charitable status persisted due to their historical foundations and contributions to education. The first step to universal education was the Elementary Education Act in 1870. It established school boards and allowed them to build and manage schools in areas where existing educational provisions were inadequate. This act meant elementary education available to all children, but it wasn't completely free. That Elementary Act was updated in 1891 and marked the introduction of free elementary education in the UK. It provided government grants to schools to cover the cost of fees of children and effectively made education free for all children aged 5 to 10. Going back to understand how a private school is seen as a charity, the Charities Act in 2011, which governs the charitable status of organisations in England and Wales, said to qualify as a charity, an organisation must have purposes that are for the public benefit. So education is considered a charitable purpose under this law because it is for the public benefit. So as long as private schools can demonstrate they provide a public benefit, such as scholarships and bursaries for students from low-income families, as long as they continue to offer those opportunities, they can maintain their charitable status. This idea of public benefit seems very controversial because people can argue that many private schools primarily serve the wealthy and there are often limited benefits to the broader public. But supporters claim that private schools relieve pressure on the public education system and provide educational excellence that benefits society as a whole. In 2006, the Charities Act introduced stricter requirements for demonstrating public benefits. So private schools now must show that they contribute to the wider community. And they can do this through partnerships with state schools or providing their facilities for public use. I feel like there's a private school that is near me that offer their facilities for swimming lessons to the general public. That is basically a public benefit. The cost of the lessons seem to be quite discounted as well. But anyway, that could be seen as an example of private schools offering their facilities for the general public to use. I know everyone has varying opinions about whether private schools should exist. Some people have the belief that private schools offer superior education and more choice, while other people believe that it perpetuates the social inequality that we have in the UK and across the world. But let's dig into the implications of VAT being added to private schools in the UK. This is too good. Who called me? Okay. Labour is proposing to implement VAT on private schools as early as January 2025, but this is all down to it passing smoothly through all the legal and parliamentary processes, which, I mean, as we can see with Labour right now, I mean, they have a huge majority in Parliament. So if they all go for it, it's going to go through smoothly. Because as we know, the House of Commons has the power. If it is implemented that quickly, it could mean that an influx of revenue, approximately £1.6 billion, will be available pretty quickly for public services. This also goes in line with Labour's attitude to immediate action and their political promises, and demonstrates good leadership. You know, Keir Starmer is doing what he said he's going to do, and he's doing it now. On the other hand, these sudden changes could disrupt school financial planning and burden families unexpectedly. Halfway through term times, you're now saying that fees need to be higher. So it's a question actually about as to why they are angling it for January 2025. Schools and families might not have time to adjust to the new cost. Having said that, I did read an article a few days ago where they said that Labour has been talking about adding VAT to private schools for years. So they were like, you know, you had enough time. But it's a bit difficult to say when it's like hypothetical it could happen. Labour wasn't in government at that time. So it really and truly, with the turnaround we had for elections in the UK, be it, I think, only over a month to really vote for who we wanted to come in, could question how much time has actually been given to schools and to parents to rejig their financial planning. Okay, so who's going to be the most affected by this change? Private schools in the UK are mostly attended by students from affluent families. We're looking at the lowest private school fees in the UK, about approximately £10,000 a year, to the most expensive private schools like Eton and Winchester being £30,000 a year. So people who are able to afford that usually have a bit more money lying around. Usually. But it's not only affluent families that take their children to private schools. It's also families from working class and middle class backgrounds who scrape money together to put their children in private schools to get a better education. And sometimes it's also based on the areas that they live in, that the state schools in that area may not be safe. They may not feel like it's the best for their children, and they feel that a private school is a safer and better environment for their children. So, you know, a lot of them are already facing financial strain putting their children into private school. Now adding VAT onto that, it will be a stretch. So this could lead to some families reconsidering private education or cause additional financial strain on those who are determined to keep their children in private schools. If families can't afford to put their children in private schools, it could mean that more investment is put into state schools as these families switch their children out of private schools to state schools. So here are my thoughts. Also, I forgot to say before I continue to even give my thoughts, getting a space together is literally stressful. Thinking around within your house, creating a space, especially if you're not typically a decor babe, which I have been trying. But I just want to give a special thanks to my Economist family. When I left the Economist, they gave me a special gift, which is right behind me. I left about 2 years ago and I am finally using it. So, live on air, they believed in me. And here I am, live on air. I'm not going to keep it on for the duration because I think I still need to figure out my setup, but in terms of lighting. But I just wanted to share, yeah, it is here live on air. So yeah, thank you so much. So my thoughts. There are 3 key things that go through my head on this situation. The first thing is, what are the political implications of adding VAT on private school fees? You may ask, like, what do you mean political implications? Well, a lot of the politicians we see today have gone to private school. Last week, I posed a question to a few of you about where do you think the people that go to private schools stand politically? And here are some of your responses.
If you were to ask me what political party private school students would vote for, I'd go Conservative, and that's probably just because I always think rich people vote Conservative.
I think people who attend private school will typically be in support of the Conservative Party. I think they'll probably agree with capitalism a lot.
I think the majority of private schooled individuals typically support the Conservative Party. One of the reasons being that private schools cultivate and encourage right-wing opinions.
I think the majority of people that go to private schools normally lean more to voting for the Tories. And that's probably because historically their parents have voted for the Tories. So coming from a slightly better off background, you want to keep those ideals.
So that's a resounding Tory. That's a resounding Conservative Party. That's what a lot of you believe. And you're not wrong. The majority of people in the Conservative Party have attended private schools, as opposed to Labour Party, especially in the current Labour Party cabinet, have gone to state schools. 92% of the cabinet ministers went to comprehensive schools, went to state schools. This is compared to the previous Conservative cabinets with Rishi Sunak, where we have 61% of the cabinet being privately educated, 23% attending comprehensive schools, 13% attending grammar schools, and nearly half of the cabinet attending Oxford or Cambridge. So hitting the Conservative Party, shall we say, stomping grounds, it does send a loud message. And I think the message is louder than the fees. There was a lot of talk about Keir Starmer's impact on the Labour Party. Labour was looked at as left, or to an extent far left, around Jeremy Corbyn's time. But now Labour has been looked at as more centre or even right in its recent years. And this type of move is a pretty brazen one, because for Keir Starmer, it says that I'm not doing something that benefits the right, and in a way brings him closer to the left, as this is something that the left would be more inclined to do. Maybe in the future, but as it stands right now, you wouldn't see the Conservative Party making this type of move. I'm also interested in how this applies to certain types of private schools, because there are people that send their children to private schools that specialize in supporting specific children's special needs. So how will this work with the increase in VAT? Will it apply for schools that support those types of families? It will be interesting to see if the government will provide some support for those families. Maybe this might come in the form of a subsidized fee for them, or more opportunities for public schools to provide those types of services. And the final thought I had was, okay, why just stop with private schools? Every plan that I see, I try and consider what this could actually mean and how it can apply in other situations. So when I look at this issue of VAT with private schools, it really makes me think, what other organizations that are looked at as charities, or other organizations that are just experiencing a lot of tax exemptions from things, could experience that being revoked? Other organizations or entities that are currently exempt from VAT are medical and healthcare services and some educational and training services. So if the government does move towards a broader application of VAT, then some of these sectors, some of these areas could potentially also face similar scrutiny and legislative changes. So it's really good to not just look at this change as a singular thing, but look at how it can transpire in other areas that you may not have really thought about. Let's not just take it as a one-off event. Let me tell you what I'm drinking. I've been drinking lemon and ginger tea with honey and fresh lemon. So I've got the lemon and ginger tea bag, and I've got fresh lemon and honey. Anyway, when you get to that end with that honey and that sweetness, that's where I am. And that's where I'm ending this episode today. Thank you so much for listening and watching Where Truth is Valued. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this topic. And yeah, let's keep being curious and valuing the truth. See you next time.